Shouldn't have fought against it right now.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. This is Jerome Horn, your chair of MBAC. Welcome to our what month of April 29th meeting, 2026, of the Mayor's Bicycle Advisory Commission. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. And as we go throughout the evening, feel free to drop questions in the chat. Please be respectful. We're going to maintain time. And when it comes to question and answer, we're going to hear from commissioners first, and then we'll open it up to other people. Now we'll do roll call. Well, first, roll call. I am here. Jermaine Jones. Quentin Batts.
Present.
Sean Becker.
Present.
Matthew Bleakney.
Present.
Sean Burnett.
Present.
Lauren Bemmy Bird.
Present.
Veronica Davis.
I am present online. Thank you.
Omar Faison.
Present.
Lieutenant Charlie James.
Present.
Patrick McMahon.
Present.
Sarah McTeer. Michelle Peralta. Patrick Terranova. Daniel Thompson.
I'm present. I'm here.
And Graham Young.
Present.
All right. We're going to move into our first agenda item with BPD traffic safety update.
Yeah, if you can speak up here, that'd be great.
Chair, you might want to recognize Sarah McTeer.
Also want to recognize Sarah McTeer has arrived.
Good evening. My name's Ryan Lee. Before I get to speaking, I just want to make sure that our online colleagues can hear clearly. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Obviously, there's your regular liaison that's assigned to us, Lieutenant Charlie James, who oversees the traffic component of the Special Operations section of the Police Department. But to provide a little bit of context of who I am and sort of where I fit in the structure, because I realize for most people, when you say Lieutenant Colonel, Grand Poobah, it all just sort of blends together. Official title is Colonel Ryan Lee. I'm the Chief of Patrol. So I report to the Deputy Commissioner of Operations and the Commissioner and the Mayor, and that's my food chain. What falls under my portfolio of responsibility is all 9 of the uniform police districts, and then the special operations section, which includes traffic, aviation, all those other assets. So authorized personnel somewhere in excess of 1,400 personnel, in theory, if we were fully staffed, would report up to me. I did want to take today and talk a little bit about some of our traffic safety initiatives and how they intersect, particularly with bicycle safety. I'll give a little bit of my history so this makes sense. I'm also the retired Assistant Chief of Police for the City of Portland, Oregon, before I came here. Portland was a Vision Zero city, as many of you in the cycling community likely know, very cycling friendly community. So this is, while maybe not as discussed a topic here in the city of Baltimore, it's a topic that's very familiar and very important to me, because one of my assignments when I was in the city of Portland was to actually spend 2.5 years supervising the major crash team that went to all fatal and serious crashes, including those that involved vulnerable road users. And I'll circle back and explain why I particularly call them vulnerable road users here in a minute. So probably most significantly when we talk about a traffic safety update is early this year, we stood up a citywide traffic team. It's a reinvigoration of the ability to have specialists for traffic enforcement. While the commissioner has made traffic enforcement a priority, as both for roadway safety as well as to deter and detect criminal activity. And we've seen a significant uptick in traffic enforcement, traffic stops, citations, and warnings in the last couple of years. We did not necessarily have a robust full-time team that was dedicated to investigating and enforcing traffic. So we stood up a citywide traffic team, two sergeants, a total of 10 officers reporting onto those sergeants committed to that team. They work in conjunction with our traffic investigation unit that was formerly known as the accident investigation unit, because they now have been tasked with investigating the full spectrum of vehicular crimes that occur. And they also work in conjunction with our motors unit, which people are most likely familiar from seeing in escorts, parades, things like that. But they are also tasked with doing traffic enforcement when also picking up those collateral duties. So it expanded the capability of having folks that were doing traffic enforcement that were not committed solely could be committed solely to doing traffic related work and not being pulled by the demands of the radio traffic that you can imagine we have in the city the size of Baltimore with some of the historic challenges that we faced. So to give a little bit of a breakdown, when we talk about what's referred to as in our parlance, a signal 31, which would be a crash with injury, a signal 32, a fatality crash. In 2005, 3 pedestrian, 1 cyclist crash would have fit inside that window for a signal 31, an injury crash. But more importantly, when we start to talk about fatal crashes, 11 pedestrians and 1 cyclist, and it's for obvious reasons. When you're a pedestrian, you're a cyclist, the degree of protection you have around you in comparison to when you're in a motor vehicle, it's significantly more. And so we need to be looking into the risks that are posed there and what we can do to sort of ensure that all road users are able to use it in a safe and productive manner. Some of that is enforcement and education, which the police department can take a part in. A good portion of that, though, is going to be engineering, which falls with our colleagues here in Department of Transportation, as well as when we start to look at development about what sorts of industries may be overlapping and how that could affect that footprint. And then really the fourth E that nobody ever bothers to talk about is evaluation, so that we can sit down and look at what is really most effective in reducing some of these risks. Baltimore, unfortunately, has a history that gets us very concerned with the homicide rate, but we almost always talk about that with violent crime. And we don't necessarily have the same in-depth and heartfelt conversation about traffic fatalities. And these are other valuable lives in our communities that are completely disrupted, and the loss of them should be treated with that same weight and gravity. We recognize that through education, enforcement, engineering, and evaluations of those programs, we can have a substantial impact in removing that. And so philosophical change to the way the department is approaching it with the introduction of the citywide traffic team. 2026 year to date, we have 3 pedestrian fatalities involved, 5 pedestrian injury crashes involved. We're not going to refer to them as accidents. They're crashes. There's always a degree of negligence when a crash occurs. But to give you an idea from an enforcement lens, what citywide traffic has been doing since January, 4,000, as of April 28th, so that would have been yesterday, 4,280 traffic stops have been conducted by that small team alone. And that's with them, they don't work 7 days a week. They've got a better schedule than mine. Total moving violations issued 3,957. Number of repair orders, because obviously if vehicles aren't functioning properly, that presents a risk to all road users, 565. Total number of warnings given, because there's that discretionary component on top of the citations, 5,043. They also, because when we start to look at road usage and road design, parking becomes a significant impact on visibility and lines of sight, particularly for pedestrians and cyclists. We're very interested in enhancing DOT's ability to do parking enforcement. They've already issued 38 parking citations year to date, 107 vehicles towed. Another 20 DUI related arrests have been conducted by them, and then other ancillary arrests because of things that you sometimes come across during traffic enforcement, another 75 arrests related to everything from traffic related crimes to other matters. So significant pivot and shift to really engage in this traffic safety component. Part of it, though, is the philosophical shift that I've been talking about. We've recently introduced into policy for the first time, admittedly, it was for internal crash reporting mechanisms, the idea of a vulnerable road user being pedestrians and cyclists, and how that they should be examined as a different data point so that we start to capture more data. We're sitting down and looking at some of the challenges that are presented, particularly when we look at maps of the high injury networks for the city, the high crash corridor areas, and how much they overlap with essentially the established cycling routes. And I think that we as a city may be missing some opportunities to maybe push cycling traffic a block or two off into a more residential neighborhood, reduce some of these risks, provided those roads are appropriate and engineered the right way with lines of sight to not create risk. And so we want to be able to have conversations with our partners and be educated in that regard. And so we are sitting down and looking at the data. But when we first started looking at some of the data, one of the things that jumped out to us was the amount of violations around bus and bike lanes, which are in certain places dual use here in the downtown core, which again, from an engineering standpoint, may not be the most optimal way to combine those two uses. But there is an overlap of people that engage in cycling as a mode of transport, as well as utilize public transit. So I think that that's probably why there's a confluence of those two things. However, with that said, we recognize that there is particularly motorized road user activity around those lanes in the downtown core that are a problem. We are presently in conversations to run joint initiative with the Transit Authority to do enforcement-related missions, specifically looking at driving activity and how it jeopardizes those people using mass transit and the cyclists using those bike lanes. For reasons that are probably obvious to this group, we're not disclosing those dates because we actually want them to be effective in interdicting people that engage in that sort of behavior. But Baltimore is significantly looking and shifting its attitude towards traffic enforcement and examining all of these variables. That's probably at a very, very, very high level. The best update that I can give you towards the initiatives that are underway, we're looking for opportunities to make connections with our traffic team, with members of communities that are using alternative modes of transport to understand some of their risks. And we're really trying much more deliberately to engage across departments in the city to see where DOT or housing or other assets can help us in this effort, not just in the traditional crime fight we may have been engaged in, but really looking at traffic safety and other components that impact both life safety as well as livability of the city. I'm of the firm belief that Baltimore is on the rise. We want to keep it going in that direction. It's going the right way, but we need to ensure that it's a livable space for everybody. With that, I'm willing to stand for any quick questions if you have some.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colonel Lee, and really appreciate the humanization of people who ride bikes or use transit. Thank you for, using the language is really important when we talk about vulnerable road users or anyone, and any loss of life, no matter how that life is being lost, is important. So thank you so much. We look forward to continued conversations, and really am excited about the data collection and the collaboration, across departments to look at this issue. At this time, do we have any questions or comments from any of the fellow commissioners?
So yes, thank you, Colonel Lee, for that information. So one of the things that you brought up that definitely caught my attention, and I noticed I traveled to Pittsburgh last year for a transit advocate weekend. And so I noticed the layout of their roads and their lanes in Pittsburgh, and how they basically had like a one bus lane in opposite direction, and most of the motorist traffic went the opposite lane. And then the bus lanes had like concrete, pylons, I guess they're called. I'm not exactly sure but I was just curious, I'm not sure which agency is necessarily responsible for the design and the structure of some of these spaces, but has there been discussion about ways to like alleviate the opportunity for vehicles to actually access those bike lanes, and also, or in the bus lanes mainly, truthfully, and then also, I guess, kind of tying that in with what you mentioned about possibly remapping, I guess, some of the layout of the bike lane and the master plan to maybe move some of those and shift some of those into residential spaces. Like, to tie that in, because I used to live in Park Heights, and so I saw what happened on Green Spring, and I'm not exactly sure like where that fell in the design plan, but it does seem like it did directly affect the community members that lived there in a way that they were just kind of like, all right, well, we're going to do what we want, which causes a break in that entire process. So I think those three kind of tied in together, but
No, so I think to answer your question, ma'am, really we're talking about what have I seen elsewhere. You're really talking about designated spaces that are deliberately divided roadways that help provide a degree of protection for vulnerable road users, designated pedestrian walkways, areas for cyclists within some sort of physical barrier. If we look at our European counterparts as a model of best design, that is a data-proven solution to reduce traffic injuries and fatalities for vulnerable road users. However, the challenges of building it in the infrastructure that we have here, you're talking about significant rebuild, redesign. And so I think the way to look at it, not by any means saying that we shouldn't be engaged in that effort, but we really need to look as we're redesigning, rezoning areas, what can we do during those windows of construction and redevelopment to start to look in those spaces to do it. Just from a practicality and a feasibility standpoint, that is probably the best way to do it. Short of that, it's really taking spaces that exist already that we know there's a low volume of vehicular traffic. Maybe it's the person getting ready to go to work until they get to Northern Parkway as an example. How do we push cycling traffic and pedestrian traffic that one block off, ensure that there's also safety from being a victim of crime in that space because it is less traveled, less eyes on it? How do we find that sweet spot, push those people off so they can still get over to, say, mass transit stops that they want to connect to, but they're also on a roadway that has less vehicle traffic, therefore decreasing the likelihood of that interaction. And so conversations with development and housing, the newly appointed commissioner over there is a friend of mine. Him and I've had many a conversation about how we look at moving forwards in the city. I think there's conversations that need to be had at DOT. I think part of it is the philosophy of a whole team approach, and not looking at this from just a police-centric lens, and the partnership and collaboration that we can have in the future.
Thank you. I really appreciate this, Colonel Lee. We, in the interest of time, we do have, I know there's a lot of questions. I know we have questions, additional questions from some of our commissioners. Should we?
Can you take the one in the chat?
Yeah. So we have a question in the chat, and Commissioner Omar, I see you. But we do have a question in the chat. Thank you so much for your attention to vulnerable road users. A couple of questions. Is there a way we can make the automatic enforcement of finding cars, trucks, and other vehicles parked in bike lanes? And then there's additional question. Is there an effort to look into traffic signs that may be creating dangerous conditions for vulnerable road users? We need to stop allowing drivers to turn right on red lights, for example.
So I think that's to the point. Part of that assessment, and I appreciate the question, is really, it's part of that engineering and evaluation component. We need to be mindful of it. And so part of us trying to capture data in a more discrete manner so that we're able to pull it apart, because very frankly, up until recent times, we were still manually writing old paper reports in the Baltimore Police Department. In recent history, we've adopted over to electronic report writing. The ability for us to start to design those reports so we can capture and pull more information out is important, because to some of those points, is this an intersection that by its design, the number of crashes, there are indications that perhaps the way the signage exists, lines of sight exist, the very engineering design needs to be reevaluated for all road user safety. We're very interested in that. When we look at parking related enforcement, part of the reason we equipped a citywide traffic team with the ability to do electronic parking tickets, and then equip them with a faster way to contact towing dispatch, was exactly for, amongst other reasons, how often we see vehicles parked in lanes of travel that are designed for the safety of others, then compel, say, a cyclist to be out in the main roadway, even though we've tried to designate a space for safety. We want the ability to be able to quickly enforce cite, affect, and tow if necessary for that. That's part of what citywide traffic was engineered from the get-go to do.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I think we're going to.
I can take the automated enforcement.
Okay, go ahead. Yep. Graham.
So the automated enforcement right now, I mean, the technology exists if you had a vehicle with a license plate reader combined with basically like AI technology to identify vehicles that are parked in a bike lane or a bus lane. The issue is that we are not able to mail citations. That would require legislative change that we're looking at implementing, because the idea would be a vehicle with a license plate reader rides by, identifies all the vehicles that are illegally parked, and then they just get a citation in the mail, streamlining everything and removing the need for an officer to get out of a vehicle and issue that citation. But yeah, it is legislation we're working on trying to pursue in the next year, because there'd be state legislation required.
No, and I appreciate that, Mr. Young, because there are some things that are clearly in the legislature's arena to be able to make change to help us be able to do some of the work we'd like to do, and or simply just change legislation to improve road safety versus the current legislation that exists. I'm not a legislator. I don't even play one on TV, so I'll let them make all of those decisions.
All right. Thank you, Colonel Lee. I think we're going to move on to our next topic, but really appreciate this. We know there's a lot of interest. We note that we see people in the chat had questions. And so we'll work on forwarding those questions and getting out contact info so we can follow up. Thank you.
And Lieutenant James, if you could post in the chat the contact for citywide traffic where people can file concerns and send us information, it'd be appreciated, Lieutenant.
Thank you. And also, thank you. We're going to recognize Commissioner Lieutenant James and Council Member Jones, I believe, have also joined us online. So, all right. Let's move on to our next topic, project updates. So we've got Fayette Street traffic calming from Brandon Latmer from Baltimore City DOT.
It's a trick, actually. It's me.
Just kidding.
Thank you so much.
Sean Burnett.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So the Fayette Street traffic calming is a project that is currently entering its second phase. The study corridor is on the screen right now. Right now, it goes from Payson, to Fremont Ave. What you can see here is some of the early data visualized. As you can see, some of the darker purple areas are where speeding becomes the most prevalent issue. And then also we've identified a number of these as prioritized intersections due to the volume of pedestrian traffic and some near misses and concerns. I think we can go to the great. So this is just another context map showing where there's a number of schools in the area. This is obviously something that incentivizes the agency to do a deeper investigation when there are concerns on roadways, primary arterials that are adjacent to schools. I think we can go. So there was a walk audit in March of 2026. Some of the pieces identified was a lack of pedestrian lighting, obviously some pedestrian ramp upgrades that are needed, some broken sidewalk, broken curbs, clogged storm drains. As you can see, there was a number of different issues that needed to be addressed through the scope of both phases of this project. We also performed a Streets of Baltimore survey. So within that survey, you can see we kind of had some big community takeaways, right? The slower speeds and more comfortable for people walking and also biking were far and away some of the most important aspects for community respondents. And so here's just some more visualization of some of the traffic data that we collected. So you can see here those big red kind of angry looking circles shows the percentages of turning movements. That's where people are going rather than continuing down Fayette, they're turning left or right, which obviously leads to conflicts with pedestrians. So those were areas where we wanted to prioritize some sort of intervention. And then we also have our KSI. This information is gathered off of the state website, which gathers all of this derived from police reports. And so you can kind of tell where the density of pedestrian and multimodal activity takes place. So phase one, the first thing that we did last year, I think within 12 months of starting the contract, was to do quick build improvements. We installed flex posts. We provided new pavement markings. We had new pavement markings for stop bars as well as continental crosswalks. And we located those at the priority intersections that had been, obviously we had selected as part of designating where these sorts of dangerous near misses are happening and where some of the accidents already have happened, or crashes rather. Right now, we're moving into phase two. Some of the options that we are planning to bring to the community for further feedback includes a two-way cycle track on the north side of Fayette. This would result in some parking loss. And then I believe option two is the one-way road. So removing that bidirectionality on Fayette, keeping some of the parking, but also creating a two-way protected cycle track. And then option three would be to maintain the two-way road, but implement some sort of slow zone or speed diverter for some of the most problematic blocks, therefore kind of breaking up what is now an existing like 8 or 9 block kind of raceway, diverting traffic north and south, creating that sort of break in the way that people have been utilizing it now, but maintaining throughput for bicyclists, pedestrians, and the like. So this is a kind of high-level timeline for where we're at with this project. Obviously, last spring, we completed the phase one, and then, this spring, the last spring. It was the most recent spring. And then summer 2026, we'll be doing some of our outreach. And then fall, we'll be working through the design process, hopefully to have that completed by next year. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner Burnett.
Any questions?
Any questions online or in the room? All right, if not, we'll move on to Central Avenue Road Diet Extension with Commissioner Bleakney.
Next slide. Awesome. So, back one, please. I think we got a little lag. Awesome. Just as a reminder, so as part of this project, we just finished up community engagement. We had 2 meetings, one in the south part of the corridor, one in the north part of the corridor. This project is a bi-directional project that feeds off the existing Central Ave road diet. So we're pushing the south section from Fleet to Dock, and then the north section from approximately Lombard all the way to Monument. So you'll have a full north-south connection into an east-west facility. Next slide, please. And then just as an overview, again, we've had our 2 community meetings. One was with living classrooms in the south of that corridor, one at Dunbar High School. Right now, over the summer, we're pushing to get to 90% design phase. And then from there, we could go out for construction. The goal is just to continue on the existing. So you have 2 through lanes, some parking where appropriate, and then the bike lane. Oh, look at that. I do that project too. All right, Harford Road. We can go. Awesome. So this is an extension of the existing Harford Road cycle track that is a little further north in the project corridor. This would complete the gap from County Line all the way down to Erdman Ave. This will go from Erdman Ave to St. Lo, where there is, again, an existing cycle track. So trying to fill that corridor. And then where other sections have then continuing projects that would bring this all the way down to Waterfront. So again, we did 2 community meetings for this. We did that Montebello Elementary Middle School and Reach. And those were both within the CHM Chum community. So we have just finished 100% final designs, and we're hoping to post those online soon at the project webpage. There's also some signal timing that we have also haven't completed, but have got the timing sheets for. They'll kind of help balance that ped bike movement both up and down the corridor, and then even with the school crossings too. All right. Keep going. Let's go to resurfacing. So we also just finished our community engagement for Roland Ave. So we had about 6 community meetings up and down the corridor. So that was with people like Hamden Village merchants. That was with the Hamden Community Council and Hamden proper. We had Hose Heights and some adjoining communities. And then one also sponsored by Councilwoman Ramos and Council Member Torrance, along with the 2 senior centers on the corridor. The project premise, right, is that this is part of the separate bike master plan 2017. So that overlaid section in green will get an upgraded cycle track, which is kind of a utilization of the 2 existing traditional striped bike lanes. And then the purple section, which is not on the master plan, will receive standard traffic calming treatment. So this should be anything like bump outs, daylighting, updated continental crossings, so on and so forth. And this is just a proposed cross section. So we did do some adjustments from our original cross section, and that is to increase the buffer, narrow the travel lanes a little more. And then this is for the minimum. So if there is more space available, we'll put that into the width of the bike lane. Because as you can see, this is a minimal NACTO cross section. We would like to increase that to at least 4.5 for each one of those lanes, so you could get cargo bikes in. Awesome. And then just continuing on, we do have 2 corridors selected for next year's resurfacing projects list. There's one still pending, given some other reviews on it. And we're hoping to get those ready for CM review and then public release within the summer. Awesome. And then just some kind of resurfacing points. So talking about the materials and what we're using. Sorry, all kind of just a reminder, all resurfacing corridors will get ADA ramps, daylighting, and standard traffic calming measures. So that might be bump outs or certain striping patterns. The new bicycle facilities will include concrete precast curb, or also known as pills, along with some flex posts to provide vertical delineation. And then where applicable, there will also be bus upgrades. So mostly we're looking at where that separated bike lane crosses with a bus stop. We will add in bus bulbs, which you can see down here. Awesome. Greenway trails.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bleakley. Before we move on to Greenway trails, just any questions from fellow commissioners regarding any of those updates?
Quick question. This is Councilman Jermaine Jones. When it comes to the Central Avenue road diet, the part that's already there, extending it, I guess the commissioner mentioned earlier about just pedestrian safety and us being mindful if there's the next street over, would it be safer, for pedestrian, for people who are using their bikes to use this lane? Has there been thought for this street on like investing in the next street over, which I think is Caroline Street? Because as you go down Central Avenue, there's like 84 curb cuts with different like dock station, loading dock stations, and different things that come in and out of the bike lanes, which just isn't the safest place, because it gives, in my sense, a false sense of safety when there's so many curb cuts in a bike lane, and like there's so many people parking in and out of there. Has there been thought, like as we're at 90% design, what it would look like on Caroline Street, where they're already installing like permanent like bike lanes, like
So,
yeah.
Councilman Jones, this is
Yeah.
Graham Young, Mayor's office.
Yeah.
So I guess since I was involved in the original installation on Central Avenue in, was it 2022, 23, as the project manager. And we did evaluate Caroline Street, right? And knowing that there is, I guess, partially constructed separated bike facilities already on Caroline Street as part of the PSO development.
Yeah.
For the Central Avenue corridor, really it was, not only I think was it a good opportunity to connect, let's say the promenade all the way up to the Monument Street cycle track, it was also I would say what's considered a somewhat easy win from a traffic perspective, because we did a traffic study, we did traffic projections, and we really saw that the the 5-lane section that was originally proposed in 2015 wasn't really justified. Reducing it down to just the 1 lane in each direction with the turn lanes would serve the traffic demand, fine from a traffic engineering conventional sense. And the curb cuts, I'd say, that metal scrap facility is definitely one of the least ideal ones. But the other ones, curb cuts when you have a two-way facility like a Maryland Avenue, I'd say are more problematic. When you have one like single direction bike lanes on each side, the expectation is that the driver is looking that direction anyway, right? When pulling out of the driveway or whatever, they're already going to be looking left. So it wasn't as much of a concern as I think when you have a two-way facility and you're evaluating the conflicts. But yeah, I think
I'll just say just for Central Avenue, because it's 1 lane right now, that part that isn't the part that's already existing, that's 1 lane. Like, I just get so many phone calls and photos from people and constituents upset about people parked in a bike lane or like stopped in a bike lane and covering up the bike lane because there's nowhere else for like traffic to go because it's 1 lane. And it's just, are we, I understand it was just whether, and I guess you all considered it already, but like extending it and doubling down on it when it's already hard for the one that already exists to be functional, I just figured I'll get past that information along, because there are already people upset because there's cars always in it, and cars loading and trucks loading their docks from like right there where Needs is at and everything else, because there's no parking, there's nowhere else for them to go besides loading in the middle of the street. So what they do is they pull over into the bike lane and load and unload in the bike lane, and then people are driving down and get upset because there's so much loading going on because there's so many industrial facilities there. Like, it's just, we're kind of doubling down on like a bike lane that already people is upset that is being violated because it's in a tough spot. You got so many businesses there and everything else. So I feel like it's just going to attract more people to use it, which is great. But once they get to that area, you're going to end up with more people even more frustrated because there's nowhere else for the vehicles to go.
Yeah. And I guess the extension to the north, like one of the plus side is it'll connect to a brand new park that was built as part of the Perkins Somerset development, and then 2 schools, I think but yeah, I fully understand as someone that met with a lot of the industrial, the owners of those buildings or operators of those buildings, the frustrations. And I think it needs to be an increase look at both enforcement there and, providing adequate loading areas in our, instead of just blanket metered parking.
And this is Sean Burnett. I'll just add in that we did look at this part of the corridor, this extension of Central Ave, with loading zones in mind, understanding that the current use of the corridor is mostly industrial. I do just want to point out that, in terms of land use and Central Ave and the future of Central Ave, a road of this nature, of this typography, with this proximity to the downtown in most of the urban areas in the United States would have already seen a pretty dramatic land use shift in the last decade or and a half. Sometimes Baltimore, specific to those pieces of progress, can trail a little behind everybody else. But I will say that this area, when we look at it in the long-term planning perspective, we want to prioritize this area for things like multifamily dense housing, due to the proximity, the amenities nearby, the proximity to job prospects and things like that. And so in some ways, this piece of infrastructure serves as a marker for what we know is kind of a future development pattern.
Yeah, I appreciate that onward looking perspective, and thank you for being direct and honest about that. But like as a you know uh elected official who represents the people who are currently there, I don't want this to kind of, I want to say, push them out or create a space in which they're no longer able to function in the space where they were at, where they have no other choice but to leave. So I have to also relay their concerns and their perspective. So thank you for that, though.
Thank you so much, everyone. There's a lot of spirited discussion about this. Just want to acknowledge the comments about, can we get rid of flex posts or use them less? And pills are a big upgrade. But yes, a very important corridor that we're moving forward with better design in the future. So appreciate the conversation. All right, let's move on to our Greenway Trail Network updates. And up first, we have May.
Great, thanks, Jerome. First thing we wanted to do as part of the Greenway Trails update is just let folks know about the new main page we have on the streets of Baltimore. We put this together, and I think what's most useful about it is that we tried to identify all the different Greenway Trail project segments that make up the trail network. So we do have those listed on there. If we don't have a Streets of Baltimore page now, it is coming soon. We also listed the ones that are led by outside partners, for example, the Masonville Cove Connector Initiative and the Shoreline Trail in Middle Branch. The main page, if you go to the Streets of Baltimore, and I can drop the link in the chat after, it does have this interactive map. Wanted to point out a couple of features on it. It was built with our GIS team as well as support from Department of Planning, and it is organized by color by the Greenway Trails routes. So within each route, there might be multiple projects that are happening. The way that you can navigate that is by using this drop down here in the lower right-hand corner. And any questions about the main page before we move on to the project updates? Pretty straightforward. Encourage folks to take a look at it. Excellent. Ethan, you want to give an update here?
Good evening. My name's Ethan McLeod. I am a planner too with the Baltimore City Department of Transportation. Here to, I think we're a little behind, so I'm going to try to breeze through these, but I'm really happy to answer any questions. Maybe we could put our outreach email in the chat too. Folks want to ask me anything. So the Greenway Trail Middle Branch to Inner Harbor segment is about a 0.6 mile extension of our planned Greenway Trail network. It's designed to connect our burgeoning entertainment district near Horseshoe Casino and near the stadiums to the Inner Harbor, where folks are probably familiar with the promenade and the off-street path that we have around Pratt and Light Streets. This begins over on Stockholm Street and then weaves down Sharp, and then it actually intersects with an ongoing Baltimore City Rec and Parks project at Solo Gibbs Park, where they will be redoing the trail. And that is a two property or two piece park going across through South Baltimore. It then picks up again on some of the residential areas, and we have hired a design consultant to help us put together engineering plans for a separated cycle track format that will again connect South Baltimore to the Inner Harbor. So we are working off an old plan set and updating it presently. And we've been in touch with Councilman Blanchard and are expecting to proceed with public engagement and some outreach this summer and going into the fall. And as May mentioned, we have our updated Greenway Trail map and an updated Streets of Baltimore page if you want to check out the alignment. And also make sure to put your email in if you want project updates and to be notified about engagement activities. All right. My other waterfront adjacent Greenway Trail segment is the Boston Street Connector. I know that there's some folks who've been waiting on this one for a while. I'm happy to share that we are proceeding with design with our partner Kittleson, our engineering consultant. This is meant, again, in the theme of network connectivity, to bridge the Potomac Street cycle track constructed a few years ago to over towards Haven Street And if you check out our GIS map, you will see there is another planned segment that this will connect to, but this is meant to create a safe all ages facility separated from traffic in Canton going down Boston Street. It's about 0.4 miles. So we are carrying designs. A lot of our designs require some updating. And so we're working with Kittleson to bring this plan set to 100%. Again, public engagement this summer and going into the fall. And yeah, we have a spur going through one of the newer developments near Brewers Hill that already has a diagonal section, and this will actually lead right up to that. So this will be an exciting one to debut. We're gonna just scroll through these, but just wanted to show the world, show Baltimore some of the updated designs we have. These are continuing to be updated in coordination with our partners at the Red Line, using their survey data. You can see the segment, its western bound is at Potomac Street and Boston Street. So this will go down the north side of Boston Street, constructing a 12-foot separated trail along Boston. Continuing across Elwood, there will be a retaining wall that is incorporated as part of this design. And we are going to be in talks with folks affected by any construction. Continues across East Avenue. So this is when we start to get into some of the more commercial areas of Canton that you may be familiar with. Continuing across Clinton through this intersection, and then Highland. And here's where we get towards the Broom Factory and some of the newer development happening on past Conkling Street. And this is the last of the plan set, the last sheet, but this is actually a privately owned roadway that we are going to be working with our private partners to construct this connecting segment to the diagonal piece I mentioned. And yeah, this is all part of a very exciting effort to build out our Greenway Trail and deliver on that promise. And we're looking forward to hearing from you and working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ethan. Any quick questions from fellow commissioners? Anyone else online or in the room? Okay, if not, we will move on to our next Chinkapin run with Quentin Batts and Micah Zaslow from Baltimore City DOT.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Quentin Batts. I'm Rails to Trails Baltimore project manager, and I'm going to give you all an update on the Chinkapin Run Trail project. So this project is currently going to 30% design. This project really originated from a community want to activate Chinkapin Run Park, but they also have a lot of intersections that run along the park that they want traffic improvements for. So the trail is going to be a catalyst for a lot of that. And to get that project rolling, we were able to get a grant from the France Merrick Foundation to fund 30% design, and we entered into a MOU with DOT. And currently, 30% design should be wrapping up in a few months. Next slide. So this is yes.
Oh, go ahead. Quick, Q.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a rough diagram of what the alignment can look like. And if you can look through this red line, you will see all the major intersections, the Alameda to Perrin Parkway. These were major areas that Mike is going to cover a little bit more to what the community is asking for.
Yeah, so it is a very large segment. It's a long segment. It's 1.8 miles, and it runs along the Chinkapin Run stream from Northern Parkway to Perrin Parkway. So it is a big project that has the potential to create a lot of multimodal connectivity in the area. Yeah, next slide. Thank you. And so based on the feedback from community members, Tool Design, who is the design consultant, tried to keep the trail as close to the stream as possible while also staying out of the 100-year floodplain. Since it is prone to flooding. So we want to control for that. But still have the benefits of being close to the stream and enjoying all of the benefits from a user perspective. So the trail would be 10 foot wide with a 10-foot wide shared use path with a 5-foot buffer and landscape buffers. That's also kind of to avoid any kind of disturbance of the trees as much as possible, the existing trees. And you can go to the next slide. There are several major intersection crossings that this trail would, the design would improve. The design would create safer crossings, adding signalized crossings, bump outs, pedestrian hybrid beacons, pedestrian left turn phases, and a full suite of other safety features at the key locations noted here, depending on the need. So yeah, next slide.
And here's a rundown of some of the community engagement that we've done. On March 19th, we had our open house. It was a great event. We got a lot of community feedback from folks. Folks were able to actually see a lot of the improvements that will come up close. And if you look at the slide, this is just a number of the communities around the park that's been involved. Build and NECO have really helped us pull this along and really make it come into fruition. Just last Saturday, we hosted a guided trail tour with residents, and they were able to see a lot of the intersections up close, walk the trails, see where the alignment will go, and we had a great time.
All right. Anything
Oh,
else?
and yes, and Michael will close
Sorry.
this out.
Yes, sorry about that. So the total design cost estimate for just getting to 100% design is 1.4 million. It is a very large project and segment. We did apply to the Department of Natural Resources Green Space Equity Program grant. We haven't heard back yet, but next steps are contingent on grant award or other sources of funding. So yeah, that's it.
Micah and Quentin, thank you so much for that. Exciting. We're going to cross fingers, thumbs, toes, whatever, for grant funding. Any quick questions from any fellow commissioners? And anybody in the room? Okay, now we're going to move on to our next segment where we talk about Patapsco Regional Greenway, Cherry Hill with Miriam Sultan.
Hello, everyone. This is Miriam. I am here from Baltimore Metropolitan Council. We're the regional planning organization for the Baltimore metropolitan region, which is Baltimore City and the surrounding counties. And we're taking this Cherry Hill Trail project to 30% design before handing it over to the city for final design and completion, construction. So we're at phase 3 of public involvement. Our phase 3 is launching on this upcoming Monday, which is May 4th. And then we'll have our website, our story map, and the selected alignment up for people to see and comment on. We have already done 2 phases of public involvement over the last year, which included community meetings and surveys. We've taken multiple site visits, including with the Department of Parks and Recreation and the Department of Transportation. This segment is part of the Patapsco Regional Greenway, which is a 40-mile greenway that part of it is planned and part of it is built, running from Carroll County to the Inner Harbor. So next slide, please. Here is a picture of the selected alignment after our community engagement, working with stakeholders, working with engineering constraints. So the alignment starts at Reedbird Avenue and Potee Street, where it will connect to the reimagined Middle Branch connection to the Middle Branch Trail. That's a planned connection, as you see in the dotted green line. From there, it goes behind the Middle Branch Fitness and Wellness Center through the Parks parcel, Reedbird Park, and the Department of Public Works right of way. And at the very bottom there, it ends at Reedbird Avenue and Round Road. The facility type is an off-street trail. 30% design is underway, and we're almost done with 30% design. After phase 3, we'll be done with that. And our third round of public engagement will run from May 4th to June 8th. So keep an eye out for that. We're having a public meeting on May 19th at 6 p.m. at the Middle Branch Fitness and Wellness Center. And to learn more and sign up for updates, you can go to yourregionyourvoice.org/PRG, which stands for Patapsco Regional Greenway. Thank you. Any questions?
All right. Thank you so much, Miriam. And once again, really exciting to see updates on the Greenway Trail. We know it's a long time coming, and we'll just keep pushing for it. All right. We're going to move on to program updates with Vision Zero. Sean Burnett, take it away.
Great. Now the mic's on. Great. So a couple of quick updates for the Vision Zero action plan. The draft action plan will be published in the coming months. We have a public meeting in the evening of Friday, June 26th. That will take place at the War Memorial. If you're familiar, it is across the street from this building. That meeting is going to be kind of a symposium, walking people through different aspects of the plan, different aspects of the city's ongoing efforts with Vision Zero, as well as reviewing some of the draft action items that will be ratified, hopefully by the end of this year. And then we will have a formally adopted city Vision Zero plan, and we will launch the next phase of our Vision Zero efforts, which is the implementation. So really excited and happy to send I think we have a Streets of Baltimore page for it, or we will have a Streets of Baltimore page for the June 26th meeting soon. And we'll make sure we put those out through all the social media. So keep your eyes peeled.
All right. That's exciting. Everyone that's in this room and online, make sure all your friends come. All right, Sean, I believe you have the next update as well, which is bike rack and scooter corral request.
Great. So we do, the Baltimore City Department of Transportation does accept bicycle parking racks as well as scooter parking corral requests. DOT does and will install them for free. There's a couple of different requirements that need to be met, standards that need to be met for the request to be honored. However, and it is also, they are installed on a as our equipment and stock allows. So we don't have infinite. So sometimes we run out, we have to order more. But once we install them in the public right of way or at city owned facilities, we do not install bicycle parking racks on private property or property owned by other public agencies. So here's kind of the workflow. When a request is submitted, DOT contacts the requester. We check to make sure that the person who owns the property or adjacent property is the one who asked for it. And then if it's approved, we add it to the queue. And depending on what our stock on hand or what other pieces that the maintenance team will have to complete, we typically have a 3 to 6 month delivery time. And then we will, of course, give an update about when we have a final date for installation, and then we will put it in. So I'm not going to read all this, but there's a lot of information here about standards, requirements, prioritization. This is all present on the website. I think we can go. So here's just some of the work that Tyler and the team has been doing. In the last 12 months, we've refreshed 27 corrals as well as installed 9 new corrals. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Sean. And yes, I did not know that there was a program to request scooter or bike storage facilities. So good knowledge. And just like it is when people reach out to the MTA to request bus shelters, there are some stipulations and limitations. So be sure to look at the fine print and the details. There is a comment: can anyone request a bike corral? For example, if we think a place should have one, can we ask for one?
You can. That request will not always be honored, because one of the big things, the first things that we ask is to make sure that where we're installing it, the owner of the adjacent property is supportive. So if you have a business or something, a coffee shop that you frequent, and they don't have bike parking, the best process is to just let them know that the city has this process, that they as a business, if they are interested in it, can go through the application process and get one for free.
Sean, can you talk about public property? So like parks, can people be requesting bike racks for parks?
They should. If it is not public right-of-way, and the delineation here is not something that is always obvious, DOT will coordinate with that agency to try and get that on their radar. It's not always going to be immediate, and it's not always going to be a yes, but if there is a park or something nearby that you would like to see some sort of either bike parking or a scooter corral, right? There's a park by your house. You like to scooter to the park. You like to sit in the park for 20 minutes and breathe really deeply before you go home and see your family. Like anything like that, we encourage you to make those requests through DOT, and then we can hopefully coordinate with those entities. I'm seeing some questions. Go ahead.
So my question would be,
and I'm sorry, Ms. Bird, can you give your name too before you?
Yes.
Great.
Lauren Bemmy Bird. So I do see that this is showing like some installation requirements and prioritization. Is there a place where people, because I know you said there are like stipulations to whether it can go a place. Is there like somewhere on the website where that's kind of listed out for people so they can assess their circumstances before they submit?
Absolutely. It is my understanding that what we are looking at right now is present on the website.
And thank you, Jed, for dropping that link in the chat.
With the assist. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, Omar Faison. So I had somebody call me the other day asking, so they have a business and they have a couple of bike racks. They want to install them on the sidewalk in front of their business. Is there a process where they can go through and like talk to DOT before they go and dig to make sure they're not hitting utility lines and getting all those relevant permits and everything?
There is. I will just say, so when we say business owner or a business adjacent, right? We need permission, the city does, from the property owner. So for a business owner, if they do not own the building, they are a leasee. We would need them to just coordinate with the property owner to make sure that they get those permissions or some sort of sign off saying that, like, yes, I acknowledge that this is something that would enhance my business or that we approve and we would like. As for a business that wants to install new bike racks, they can reach out directly to Tyler. What we will do is we will work through the right-of-way office to make sure, likely what they'll need to submit is a picture of the outside of their business, as well as some sort of plan for how they plan to install them. And we will check for things like ADA compliance, make sure that they're using the right kind of city-approved bike racks, and also trying to double check some of the other pieces, like they may have to indemnify some of the work, because if a private entity installs them, the city's not always going to be in perpetuity, right, liable and responsible for upkeep, maintenance, replacement, and things of that nature.
Thank you.
And Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah. So my question was just if you have a designated corral in a certain area, if that will also, if the scooter or bike will limit you from parking anywhere else outside of that corral.
It does not at current. Typically what cities do when they use corrals or want to incentivize corrals is instead of using negative incentives, they use positive incentives. So maybe you get a discount on your ride if you park within one of the designated corral sections. Corrals are also utilized not just for individual users to drop them off, right? But it's also a place for the company itself when they're rebalancing the fleet. It gives them a designated place to put them that we have already checked to make sure that it doesn't create any kind of conflicts with pedestrians. You may have experiences before. You're walking down the sidewalk is 5 feet wide, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with 9 scooters all in a row, and they're blocking your route forward. So this is a way for us to work with the scooter companies to give them designated areas where there's sufficient space to kind of do some of this, what they call nesting.
And there isn't an interest in having negative incentives, right?
I will say that we already have a pretty large surface area of the city that are no ride zones. We work very hard with community partners and other city partners to make sure that places that are sensitive, right, to that sort of behavior are geofenced is the term for it, or made so that the vehicles won't operate, or that the vehicles will be speed locked to like 3 miles per hour, I believe. But typically, what we don't want people to do who may not know, right, naturally where those boundaries are, we don't want to put people in a situation where they're utilizing these as a form of valid transportation, and now they're isolated or stranded in a certain place just because they didn't know where some of these things were.
I want to make sure we stay on schedule, but I do see a question from Jed Weeks online.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, with the businesses that install their own racks, the minor privilege fee is waived. And so that's a really nice incentive, so they don't actually have to pay.
Sorry, Jed, can you speak up a little bit? We're having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say that the minor privilege fee is waived for businesses that install their own racks, which is really nice. And Baltimore also got some really positive press in Philadelphia recently because their process is onerous and not transparent. So I'll drop a link in the chat from Billy Penn, where there's some really positive coverage comparing them to Baltimore and what's working in Baltimore.
That's great. Great to hear Baltimore being highlighted. All right, we're going to move on to our micro mobility update from Tyler.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on the meeting. The dockless vehicle program in Baltimore City is, we administer rules and regulations for our 2 dockless operators. Those are the publicly rentable e-scooters and e-bikes from Spin and Lime. And you can see there on the image the current fleet limits for both of our operators: Spin with 2,800 e-scooters and about 150 e-bikes, Lime with almost 2,000 e-scooters, in fact 2,000 between seated and standing type e-scooters, and 700 e-bikes. We do anticipate, very excited, that Spin is going to bring significantly more e-bikes to this market in the summer of this year. Next slide, please. So we've already had 650,000 trips occur in 2026. You can see the metrics there on the distance. On average, these are about 1.2 miles, and the trips are taking about 11 or 10 minutes. Our utilization, even with the blizzard that hit us in late January, is over 1. In fact, 1.6 trips per vehicle per day. And we are seeing significant greenhouse gas savings as a result of that. Next slide, please. So in a section of the big jump that saw the permanent barriers installed, we saw dockless trips just from Lime increase by almost 2 times, with 2,300 trips in October 24 through February 25, and 4,400 trips in October 25 through February 26. And you can see on those graphics there the actual start point and end points for those routes, for those vehicles going through that section of the big jump, which is a really good example of sort of the breadth of impact of new protected bike infrastructure, reaching out far beyond the immediate neighborhoods around it. You can see people traveling throughout the entire city, essentially, going through that section, which indicates to me that when there is safe, protected bike infrastructure, our e-scooter and e-bike riders are going out of their way to take advantage of it, indicating demand for more such infrastructure, which would be beneficial in helping protect our e-scooter and e-bike riders. We did just have a research project from Lyme last year show that in new protected bike infrastructure areas, safety incidents on their scooters went down, I think close to 30%. I believe it was like 28%. So that was very exciting to see. And ridership is growing tremendously as well in those new bike infrastructure areas. So just a reminder that it's not just bikes, right? The e-scooters, privately owned scooters, privately owned bikes. I see folks in wheelchairs using bike lanes all the time. Something to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Reminder that, big win for the city was hitting a very deep discount for the income qualified access program for both Spin and Lime. So both of these companies are locked into offering 80% off trips for anyone getting SNAP EBT benefits, Medicaid, other things like that. You can scan that QR code. It'll take you to our page with links to both Spin and Lime's access programs. And there are also no unlock fees for those trips. Those trips can be limited to 4 trips per day. The idea being you can get to school or get to work and back, and then make an additional trip, maybe to get some groceries and get back home every day at that 80% discount. This is a new agreement that the city came to with these companies, and it is now in the rules and regulations for the program. So we can count on that being the offer for the foreseeable future. And I could use everybody's help in getting the word out about the access program. Next slide, please. Yeah, and so not only is Spin increasing the number of bikes on our streets, but they have also updated the vehicles offered on our streets. So these are the new Spin bikes. I encourage everyone to give them a try. I've ridden them a few times. They're quite enjoyable to ride. They offer a very low step over profile so that folks who might have had a harder time swinging their legs over the older model are going to have a much easier time with these bikes. They are all throttled, which means that you do not have to pedal if you do not want to, but you can always pedal if you'd like to get, your leg motion in there. They also all have front baskets, which can be utilized for, carrying what you need. Don't have to necessarily have a backpack to be able to take some items on your bike trip. So we are really excited to see that, and are excited to see a lot more of them on our streets in the coming months. Next slide, please. Okay, so, is this my slide?
No, it is not.
Okay.
I don't think Michelle Peralta is able to join us unless she's on the phone. Well, I know Michelle Peralta from the health department wanted to just speak to the fact that I think she's really appreciated coordinating with you, Tyler, and on the micromobility program. Wanted to reiterate that the health department sees the value in the access program. So kind of saying exactly what you were just sharing with us, pointing out that a good portion of Baltimore City lacks access to a vehicle, and that they have, I think, Tyler, and maybe you can speak to this better, they have incorporated the access program into their health service request form. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, so it was a pleasure working with Michelle on helping to get the word out about the access program through the health department. They are including information about the access program in some of their informational packages that they make available to residents as a part of that. I also have printed up a ton of business cards showing the access program details with the QR code on it. And if there are outreach opportunities anyone on this commission can think of that I should take advantage of, I am all ears for that.
Tyler, are you able to put your contact information in the chat in case folks want to get in touch with you about that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Tyler, thank you so much for this update. Really exciting to see, our micromobility program take off and, just reinforce what we all intuitively know, that where you put good infrastructure, more people will ride. We wish that program continued success, and really also happy to hear about the connections to health. All right, we are moving a little bit behind, but we're going to get an update from Sean Burnett about citations for parking in bike lanes.
All right.
Really quick question on the micro mobility program, if you don't mind, before we move on.
Oh, my apologies, Commissioner Jones. Go ahead.
I think access is great, and I think we definitely need to. I'm proud to see the access, and the reduced prices for folks. One thing I did notice when I first got in office, every time I drove a scooter and I drove past Latrobe Homes, it would stop and cut off. And then doing further investigation, I realized that was the whole entire Latrobe area was restricted for some reason, where the scooters didn't work and they were in reduced speed. And it wasn't until I looked into it and I noticed on the map, there was a red map. I saw this is kind of intentional. And then I asked them to kind of release it because I guess they was having issues in that area. So I know that was the one place I had it in my district. But this is the low income area where I feel like people need the most amount of access to, but instead they couldn't even use it there. So I don't know if that's happening anywhere else in the city, but it may be worth looking at. And I'm not sure how we can look at the rest of the city on whether or not there's other places where it's low income areas, but because of it, it's kind of got that no red area in it, or where it doesn't work and function. And if it is, then I think we all need to advocate as a city to kind of release those and make that happen in order to, increase access for everyone.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, and I have good news for you. It has been lifted. That was implemented under predecessor. It was brought to my attention. We worked with the operator to lift that no operation zone, so that is no longer in effect at Latrobe Homes.
Okay, how about anywhere else in the city? That's what I mean. I only can really speak for Latrobe Homes, and that's why, but I don't know if it exists anywhere else, but it may be something to look into while we're talking about access for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. So an easy way for anyone to take a look at where the no operation zones are is to open the app for either of our operators, Spin or Lime, click on a vehicle, and then the zones where there are slow zones, which slow the vehicles down to 8 miles per hour. Those are located on the map at that point. Only after you click on the vehicle, you can see the no operation zones where the scooters will lose all e-assist, and you can see the no parking zones where you cannot end a trip. So that is an easy way for folks to check. I am not aware of any other no operation zones that are sort of neighborhood based in the city. We have one in Fed Hill Park during nighttime, for example, but that was for very specific reasons. So I am open to hearing from folks who might have requests for any kind of geofence zone. We do have a process for that. I do need to see data, indicating why it's justified. It's not just a vibes type thing, but I took a look at that and lifted it as soon as I was alerted to it. So I also would like to hear about any other issues like that.
No, thank you. I appreciate too when I raised the concern you are lifting that. Thanks.
So sorry, Councilman, this is Sean Burnett. I just want to add that the no ride zones that are in existence are not, DOT does not go out and just look at sites and say, we don't think scooters should be allowed here. There are always requests from the property owners or some sort of organization. So it's possible that, I don't know, but a situation like the Latrobe Homes, it's possible that HABC could have had some issues early on, and that was established. And now that, some of those issues may have resolved themselves, it was we were capable of reopening that up for the scooter mobility. But absolutely,
I appreciate it, because at first it was, I kind of just asked why it existed, and like just wasn't getting much of an answer. But then they released it, so But yeah, thanks.
Thanks for shedding light on that. And just want to note from the comments regarding direct enrollments into the access program that Omar Faison from Baltimore is enabled to do direct enrollments. So want to note that. Also, there was an earlier comment about potential conflict with the June 26th Vision Zero and Baltimore Bike Party. So just want to note that.
they're on the same night. Well, come on down. Yeah, bring the guy with the tall bike.
We'll bring Bike Party to the event. All right, we can move on to our citations update.
Thank you. I'm going to go through this pretty quick because we are running behind. But right now you can see that there was some targeted enforcement on Patapsco Street. January and March, we crushed it. February was a little down. Most of that was due to snow. However, we should see those numbers start to climb, like you can see in March, as we enter into the season of suspect parking, and hopefully we crank that 82 way up.
Great, thank you. All right, community events and meetings. All right, so we've got Baltimore Bike Party on May 29th. First of all, May is Bike Month. Woo! Oh, there we go. I was like, let's be a little bit more excited there. May is Bike Month. We've got so many events happening. Also, Bike to Work Week will be coming. Sign up for a shirt if you haven't. I don't remember the address. Maybe somebody can drop that in the chat. But we got Bike Party on May 29th. We've got Bike Breakfast this Friday. We've got the Bike to Work kickoff event on Monday, May 11th. Bike to Work Week happy hour on May 15th. Stoop Stories, which I got to go to last year, kind of a fun event, on May 27th. And then Mobile Bike Shop on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Bike More. Are there any other events related to biking that anyone wants to highlight, either online or in the room? Femi?
Thank you. Commissioner Bemi Bird, is the mobile bike shop still going to be hosted at Druid Hill Park in Lake Montebello this year, or are they going to actually be mobile and like moving locations?
We will still be at Lake Montebello on Tuesdays and Druid Hill Park on Thursdays, but we will have other events around the city, both through May and throughout the summer and fall.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right. Any other bike events coming up or community events related to biking that anyone wanted to highlight? And thank you, Sean, for dropping in the registration link for Bike to Work in the chat. All right. Reminder, our next MBAC meeting will be virtual on July 29th from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then we'll do another hybrid meeting where we hope for better weather on October 29th. And stay tuned for updates. There may be some additional MBAC bike related bike rides or tours of facilities later in the year by Commissioner McMahon. All right. Any last comments before we adjourn? Please identify yourself.
I have a question about the bike lane citations. That was 82 for the entire year. Sorry, I'm Chris Quinnip. I'm a cycling advocate, basically, involved with a few different groups. But yeah, so 82 for the whole year so far. So I'd like to comment that when I make a 311 request for things in a bike lane, it usually doesn't get actioned on until a day later. And I'm wondering what processes are being improved to action on that, because a day later usually a car has moved. So
I know Commissioner Burnett went away, so
Sean's no longer here, but we can try to have a good response to you by the next meeting. Apologies, there's no other better way to communicate in the interim, but we are working on it, as I understand, unless Graham can speak to it.
So, Graham Young with the mayor's office. I can speak to, we are working on improving the dispatch process. Currently, the dispatch process, unfortunately, does lag that day behind. And we're working on setting up a more real-time, being able to dispatch to a traffic enforcement officer that's in that post or in that area to respond to a 311 service request.
Graham, are you able to speak at all to the timeline on how that's going to be improved? Is that like something that's being worked on this year?
This year, yes, but I would need to follow up on an exact timeline for when we would have that sort of like real-time dispatch.
Okay, I'm not sure that folks heard that because he didn't have the mic, but they are working on a timeline. They might be able to have it at the next meeting. Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay.
all right, one more question, and then we'll have to adjourn for the interest of time. But there is in the chat about bike lane cleanup and trash and debris that accumulates. Can anyone speak to that?
Unless Graham, can you speak to maintenance in the bike lanes? I will say that at the last BOE, I believe that there was a process that started getting approved for the bike lane sweeper. So that process is moving forward. We don't have an estimate on when that bike lane sweeper will be here, but know that there was action at the last Board of Estimates meeting, and that it was approved to proceed with, I believe, 2 diesel sweepers and 1 electric sweeper.
All right, thank you, May. And with that, we're going to adjourn this bike commission meeting. Thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you soon.